It's Sunday evening here in Truckee, where I'm calling in from, and I thought I'd share a few updates with the community, see who shows up. And I'm going to talk about our lobbying efforts for legal microdosing. So my name is Paul F. Austin, the founder of Third Wave. And about 2.5 years ago, I was sitting at the Butcher's Daughter in Venice, a cute little kind of lunch brunch spot with Ali Shaper and another friend of ours, Ashley, who's a lawyer. And we were talking about the need to lobby for legal microdosing, that a lot of the policy that had been developed thus far was specific to high dose therapeutic use with the requirement of a guide or a facilitator, and there wasn't a lot of structure or regulation put into place for those who wanted to take low doses of psychedelics 2 or 3 times a week at home without the need for in-person supervision. And so we started the Microdosing Collective just over 2.5 years ago. This was like end of 2021, October 2021. And since then, we've hosted several events, raised a good amount of money, and had our first lobby day in Sacramento, California. And so we're really looking at how do we develop a legal and regulated marketplace for psilocybin microdosing supplements. So a legal and regulated marketplace for psilocybin microdosing supplements. And that's because so many of them already exist. It's very easy to access microdoses of psilocybin these days online. And so, but a lot of the what's being sold, the product is not third-party lab tested. You don't know what's in it. And in fact, there was some recent research done by Hi-Fe, which is a lab in Oakland, and Double Blind, and they found that a lot of, especially chocolates that were being sold as mushroom chocolate, psilocybin chocolates, had a synthetic replacement called 4-ACO-DMT. Still very safe, very similar, but much cheaper to produce. But folks who are consumers don't have that awareness, and so there's no consumer protection. Plus, we feel like people shouldn't have to pay. If you want to legally microdose, get this, folks. If you want to legally microdose in Oregon right now, guess how much you have to pay? Let's see. Just write in the chat. If you want to legally microdose in psilocybin or with psilocybin right now in Oregon, guess how much you have to legally pay? Type some guesses into the chat for me. $3,500. That's for a high dose therapeutic use. So Carmen, you're on point for that. But I'm talking just for a microdose. What's the minimum amount do you think that one would have to pay to do a microdose legally? 150, 100. Great guesses. Anyone else want to just type something in the chat about their potential guess? 500. So $800. $800 if you want to legally microdose in a licensed place in Oregon. Guess how much it costs for the same thing to do it at home? $3. You might pay upwards of $6, $6 to $8, right? But that's the inane and insane differential between a legal microdose and a black market microdose right now. We have ones called MM1, which if any of you are interested in psilocybin microdoses, I'm happy to pass that along to you. Just send me a DM. Ours is $150 for 30 supplements, which ends up being about a 10 to 12 week supply, about a 3-month supply. So we charge about $5 per supplement. So that's an incredible difference, right? And if that difference maintains, and just for context here, the bill that California is looking to pass this year, and they got a similar bill through last year, but Gavin Newsom vetoed it because there wasn't enough therapeutic regulation in place. And so it's very likely that they will get a bill passed this year, but it will have a very similar model as Oregon. It's just that slightly more, a higher number of medicines can be used. Psilocybin, MDMA, ayahuasca, and San Pedro, I believe. But still, no provision that's been put into place for microdosing. So you'll have to pay to go into a licensed service center with a licensed facilitator, and it will cost, again, probably anywhere from $500 to $1,000 to legally microdose. And that's at a point in time when the DEA is no longer focusing on enforcing psychedelic-related activities, especially if it's in a therapeutic, healing, regulated wellness realm. They're really focused on fentanyl. And so you have these two emerging forces, which is the black market's only going to get bigger and stronger and more developed and more mature. Prices will continue to hold, if not get lower than what they currently are in terms of supply to microdosing. And the legal market will be totally out of whack, out of alignment with what the broader market is asking for. Because the vast majority of people who do psychedelics microdose at this point in time. Right? I'm going to repeat that again. The vast majority of people who work with psychedelics at this point in time, they microdose. And so we're starting to create a regulated market, which is actually not reflective of the way it's being done presently. And we saw what happened with cannabis when that took place, right? Still, the black market in California is much bigger than the legal regulated market. And so as we look to, I want to support our governments in many ways, tax dollars, building a more sane and, a healing society. And so we really have to ask, what can we do from a lens of microdosing to ensure everyone can access this medicine, that it's low cost, and that they have the support that they need, of course. I mean, that's why we're, through the Psychedelic Coaching Institute, training coaches and facilitators and advisors and guides even on how to work with microdoses to ensure that anyone who actually needs some support, they can find them in Third Wave's directory, right? It's a pretty easy way to access it. And so we really have to be, and this is what we've been doing for 9 years now, we have to be intentional about developing a mature, regulated system of trust and verification, a more mycelial ecosystem that allows for the decentralization of psychedelic medicine and substances. And so we found ourselves in Sacramento as a nonprofit. My two co-founders are Ali Shaper. Ali co-founded Supermush and has been big in the functional mushroom space and is an incredible woman and human. And then we also have Josh Capel. Josh was the campaign chair for the Natural Medicine Health Act, which legalized psychedelics in Colorado. And so us three, as well as some of our other founding members, showed up in Sacramento, and we spoke to the governor's office in California. We spoke to several members of the Legislative Assembly, and we also spoke to Senator Scott Wiener, who is the lead senator on this initiative. And they were all very receptive and open, and it's politics. You can't really get a clear, strong read. And my intuitive read is that the bill that will be passed this year will be strictly for therapeutic use. You will have to go into a licensed, service center to make it happen. But we are hopeful that we can get some sort of pilot research project carried out or written in for microdosing so we can start to show this is how you can do it in a safe and regulated manner. Because that's really important, and to collect more real world data about how microdosing can be, responsibly provided to our communities, which is incredibly exciting and really fantastic. So overall, we thought that Lobby Day was quite successful. We were happy to show up to Sacramento and talk about microdosing to a lot of these people. Many of them, if not all of them, knew a thing or two about psychedelics. Many of them had a friend or two who had microdosed prior. So there's quite a bit of awareness, which is incredibly exciting. And so what you're going to see more from Third Wave is co-promotion with Microdosing Collective. We're going to start a webinar series together with this nonprofit. We will be co-hosting events with the Microdosing Collective. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I'm just going to drop the link in the chat. It's microdosingcollective.org, and you can become a member of the nonprofit. Can add you to the WhatsApp. We have a private WhatsApp group messaging, which I'm happy to add members to as well. It's a really great initiative to support overall. We think, I believe that by 2027, if not sooner, that we could have a legal regulated marketplace for microdoses of psilocybin mushrooms in the state of California. That's the goal by 2027, which some people would perceive that as ambitious or aggressive. That tends to be how I think in timelines. But if there's focus, if there's energy, if there's resources brought forth under this initiative, then we intend to be a voice for the people. We intend to represent the people. And as I mentioned before, the vast majority of people who are working with psychedelics are microdosing. So go ahead, check out microdosingcollective.org, folks. Become a member. We also are on social, mostly on Instagram, but also on LinkedIn. And I would love for as many of you as possible to get involved with us and help support that initiative. We're a 501c3 in California as well. So we are a nonprofit. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Farah. Welcome, folks. So I'm curious, does anyone want to just come up and come on camera with me for a little bit? I'm happy to invite a speaker or two up, and maybe we can just have some dialogue and conversation about the lobby day. I'm happy to answer questions. I see some friends in here and familiar faces. So I'm pretty open. If coming up and chatting a little bit is interesting for any of you, let me know, and I'll bring you up on stage. And if not, I can also answer questions in the chat. So if you have questions about Lobby Day, if you have questions about the Microdosing Collective, if you have questions about the type of conversations that we had while we were there, anything that might be of interest, I'm happy to dive into as we keep it going this Sunday evening. Okay, so I'm not seeing any volunteers to speak, which is totally fine. I get it. Might be like you're kind of being put in the spot a little bit. And I haven't seen any questions come in as well. So I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're thinking about in terms of what a legal regulated marketplace could look like. And then after that, I'll one more time ask if there's any questions, anyone that wants to speak, and then we'll close up for the evening. So what we're thinking in terms of a legal regulated marketplace is that it would be only psilocybin mushrooms that would be part of this legal regulated marketplace, that anyone, any adult could have access to this. And then essentially a facilitator would have to be licensed to be able to provide this psychedelic, okay? So you would essentially you would license the facilitator group. There would be some method or governance of accountability of that facilitator group. It could be small at first, 10 to 20. And all of those facilitator groups also have a microdosing supplement that they sell. And those supplements have to be third-party lab tested. So it's confirmed without a shadow of a doubt that what they're selling are psilocybin microdoses. And then there would be diversity. Some would sell with certain herbs, some would sell it on its own, some would sell it in a stammet stack. One of my favorite stacks is Kanna, theobromine, lion's mane. The stammet stack is niacin, lion's mane, and psilocybin. Some stacks that I love include cordyceps, bacopa, rhodiola, ashwagandha, skullcap, shilajit, vitamin D. The list of supplements you can weave in to create different subjective effects, right? And so we'll have this inner core of licensed facilitators. All the medicine they're selling will be third-party lab tested, and then they'll be accountable to a governance structure in terms of money coming in and the overall expense of producing the product. And then there's accountability in terms of if there's an issue, if there's a problem, with one of the clients, then that can be navigated as well. And so this is why we have been focusing so much through our coaching institute to train those facilitators. So thus far, we've enrolled over 250 facilitators into our training and certification program. And the intention is to start to build a model for how we can prepare facilitators to provide microdoses to clients at large. Because that's a different skill set than guiding for high dose therapeutic uses. It's a lot more of an emphasis on coaching rather than deep kind of therapeutic holding. And so a lot of our coaches are trained in how do you assess, how do you prepare, how do you help folks integrate, what does that whole ecosystem look like around psychedelics. Some are clinically informed, some are not. And that's pretty easy to people who come in on the front end who have a clinical condition would be paired with a therapist that is licensed or facilitated. But someone who's coming in just from a more wellness angle would be paired with a non-clinician who maybe is an executive coach, a health and wellness coach, a life and relationship coach. They have some of their specialty that they're bringing to the table. And so we believe in that way we'd have both, we'd have the ecosystem that we think would be ideal, and that there's governance, there's oversight, there's regulation, there's a high degree of training and licensure, and people are getting access to safe medicine, most importantly, consumer protection, right? These people know what they're getting. They know it can be effective. And if they do it 2 or 3 times a week, it can be very useful in tandem with therapy or in tandem with coaching or some other support. So, and there's obviously in laws and legislation, there is a lot of dialogue. There's going to have to be a lot more detail in that, but that, just to not overcomplicate it, I really think it's as simple as that. The facilitators are accountable to a governance structure that is people elected or people voted on, and the consumers are protected by that structure, right? And then the consumer and the facilitator or guide have a relationship that's built on rapport and trust and understanding and a legal framework, which is important. So in terms of programs, there are, I think at last conversation, there's something like 140 training programs out there right now, which is insane. That number will probably shrink over the next year or so, because there will be more consolidation in the market. Not all of them will be able to make it and sell seats out and all those sorts of things. So I would expect, that's a great question, Carmen, I'll get to it. I would expect that we'll probably see between, right now I'd say there's anywhere from 15 to 20 really high quality training programs out there. I think we'll see that drop to probably 10 super high quality training programs in the next year. And a lot of the way that training programs will be licensed will be probably similar to what Oregon did, which is that you'll have to become licensed in the state itself. So California will have its own licensing program. And there could be a provision written in that says if you're already approved, let's say in the state of Oregon, that could transfer as well to the state of California, because the regulations are quite similar. So I think that would be the most efficient and probably best way to do it. But you never know. You might have to go through a whole new application process in each state, in California and Colorado and all these places that are rolling out. It's likely that states will have individuals. So that means a place like Naropa will just have more administrative work to ensure that they can apply, and they'll likely get approved. And there may, depending on how different those state regulations are, there may have to be small tweaks in the programming or curriculum to be sufficient for a state based on the, requirements that they've presented. In terms of a federally regulated model, we'll know more about that when MDMA gets approved this year. It's likely there will be full rollout by, I'm going to say January 2025, and that will be through a prescription. You will have to have a clinical diagnosis of PTSD. It's still unclear, at least from where I'm standing, if there will be one person or 2 people, like therapists required for the one person who's going through the treatment. If there can be group experiences that are done, that's still not totally clear. And it's also not yet clear who will be approved to provide MDMA and sit for these experiences. MAPS thought that the training they had done prior to FDA regulation would be sort of given the stamp of approval, but that may not be the case anymore. So there may need to be therapists and facilitators trained from scratch, which would significantly delay the rollout. Which could be the intention behind the additional regulation. And then we could see as soon as 2026 legal psilocybin. It might be a little bit later than that. It could be 2027, but the FDA will likely approve psilocybin through both Compass Pathways and USONA, a nonprofit, for major depressive disorder and treatment-resistant depression. And so my expectation is that by the end of this decade, the vast majority of Americans will have legal access to psychedelic medicine. Now, again, with the FDA approval process, that doesn't mean microdosing will be legal. It will still be illegal until it gets approved by the FDA. And we could see that for LSD for depression, microdoses of LSD for depression, by potentially 2027 or 2028 as well, which is exciting. They are currently in phase 2 clinical trials in New Zealand. There's a company called Mind Biotherapeutics that is carrying out a clinical trial where they send individuals home with 10 micrograms of LSD. So you can actually have that LSD that you take home with you. It's 10 micrograms of LSD, and you do that twice a week for a period of, I believe, 2 months. And they found there was a 53% of people were no longer depressed after that treatment, and 60% saw a significant reduction in their symptoms of depression. So very strong evidence, which is exciting. So that's a great question, Daniel. So Daniel's question is about the recriminalizing of psychedelics in Oregon. Just so everyone's clear, the Oregon passed 2 measures in 2020, 109 and 110. 109 created a legal psilocybin mushroom marketplace in Oregon. So that's why mushrooms are now fully legal in Oregon through this licensed facilitator and licensed clinic model. At the same time, there was a second bill that was passed, 110, that decriminalized all drugs, those psychedelics, and also all quote unquote hard drugs, cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, crystal meth, all of it decriminalized. Because of how bad the homeless situation has gotten and the way that it has been blamed on the addiction crisis, which has been accelerated by fentanyl, Oregon has now recriminalized all drugs. Still, psilocybin mushrooms are legal. So that's still present and available. What that means, Daniel, is it will likely, bills that get passed. So just to go back to the example of California, the bill that landed on Governor Newsom's desk last year had a similar provision to decriminalize all psychedelics, like what happened in Colorado. So Colorado decriminalized all plant medicines, and they're only now just starting to put in a licensed and regulated model. The governor said, no, there needs to be more regulation. And so now the new bill that's being passed is very similar to 109 in Oregon, where psilocybin, ayahuasca, MDMA, and San Pedro will be legalized for therapeutic use through licensed centers and facilitators. So all drugs will not be decriminalized in California. Nope. Carmen, are there going to be certain licensing requirements, like being a therapist, RN, NP, or MD, to be trained and certified? If you want to work within the FDA, yes. So if you want to provide legal MDMA, they will require a clinical diagnosis or a clinical. They'll have licensing requirements in that way. Oregon does not have licensing requirements. You can get approved to be a legal facilitator in Oregon and not have any licensing credentials. In California, I believe it will be the same, though don't quote me on that. I would need to do a little bit more diligence on the bill as it currently is. But from what I understand, you do not need a licensing credential to be to legally practice in Oregon. I know that 100%. Anyone want to come up and dialogue? Questions, thoughts? Hey, Brandon, welcome. Welcome to the party. It's great to see all you here. Any other questions about microdosing, about the legal rollout of psychedelics? Anyone interested in coming up on stage and just saying hi? And I'm having a bit of conversation and dialogue. All right. Well, this was fun. That was like almost 30 minutes. That was super solid. I hope it was a good overview. Yeah, Carmen, let me, if you just search, let me find it and post it in the community. Yeah, I need to find it and post it in the community. I would have to ping a friend about that. Great question. Farah, I see you typing and writing away. Welcome in, Brett. Oh, no worries. Yeah, no worries, Daniel. I just thought I would offer that to anyone who's interested. Hi, Farah. Yeah, it's great to see you. It's fun to hear about. I'm probably going to do more of these this week. I'm staying at a friend, Michelle Gale. Michelle is a graduate of our CCP4 program, and she has a beautiful house in Truckee. And I've never had a monitor this big. If I could show you how big this monitor was, you'd be blown away. And it actually makes work fun again, which I don't feel on this my little 13-inch laptop when I'm typing away. This is like a 40-inch screen, so that's incredible. Susanna, does Third Wave offer a separate training for microdosing guides versus journey guides? What we cover is relevant for both. What we don't go into detail on is how to guide high dose therapeutic experiences in our level 1. We touch on it, we cover it, we have some context on it, but we don't focus on it. We really focus on the 5 key elements: assessment, preparation, the experience, just how to navigate, provider and how to find a great provider, integration, and microdosing. So that's all relevant for microdosing coaches as well. And I do very specific Q&As and other workshops on microdosing, which people find to be plenty in terms of getting trained. Trained. I've recorded it. Upcoming meetings for us in our event section. We just have all those meetings. I'm going to do another Q&A on Wednesday night about the upcoming microdosing experience. I'm leading a 6-week group coaching container for microdosing starting April 15th as an orientation, and then the coaching starts April 22nd. So I'm going to do a Q&A about that on Tuesday night, and then I'll probably do 1 or 2 other sessions. I just thought I would provide an update for all of you, so you can have a sense of what's going on as we lobby for legal microdosing and the overall context that will help you to understand how to navigate this space as it becomes more accessible and available. So I've recorded this. I'm going to post it to the community soon, and it was great to see all of you here. Thanks for showing up on a Sunday evening. This was a ton of fun, and I hope to see many of you soon, or again in the community. And invite a friend. Invite a friend, folks. This community is really starting to take hold. Maybe after this, there's a link, and if you go in the upper right-hand corner, you can just grab a link, and you can send it to a friend and tell them, hey, I'm part of this great community around psychedelics. Ask them to join. That might be a great way to share the love with everyone. We're talking about some really excellent things here. So just share that community link with friends. It's great to see all of you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for watching. For a deeper dive into the power of microdosing with complimentary practice and extra guidance, check out our best-selling microdosing course. It's a science-based protocol with dozens of best practices so you can customize your protocol to your unique needs and goals. Check out the link in the description below.